So speaking of legacy, this is a good time for me to introduce Mr. Stephen Smith. And the reason that we are actually talking about all of this because Mr. Smith, we first want to appreciate Iram. Iram? Thank you. So Iram Hassan is a friend of Mr. Smith, and she introduced us to him several months ago and said, listen, this guy is talented, he's unique, he does a lot of good with the community. It sounds like another gentleman we know in the back, Sky Kirshner, that I think we should have a dialogue with this gentleman, and we did, and this is the end result of this collaboration. So he is the director of West Virginia Healthy Kids. Their mission is to stop children poverty in the state of West Virginia. Prior to coming to Healthy Kids, he was a director of the Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights. I hope your ears are perking up for this one. He's the author of Stoking the Fire of Democracy, Our Generation's Introduction to Grassroots Organizing. The books are on a table back here. He is actually offering the books as compliments, not charging. And if anybody would like one and would like a signature, you are definitely more than welcome at the end. Thank you in advance. We appreciate that. He's a graduate of Harvard University and the London School of Economics. So he's worked in a wide range of communities, running for a for-profit bakery operated by people with disabilities to founding a youth advocacy organization that won victories on healthcare and financial aid. Since he joined 2012, they passed 18 legislations. Am I correct? So what this tells us about Stephen is not only that he has a goal, the legislation has to have a goal, not only did he have a strategy in place, a plan, and tactics on how to get done, he got every single one of them passed in the state, which is, I think, unheard of. So with that, I'd like to welcome Mr. Stephen Smith to the floor and pass on the baton to you.
Good evening. I am very honored to be here. This session, so when I first started organizing, this is a session on community organizing. When I first started organizing, they told me it would take 4 years to learn how to organize. We have 1 hour. There's a saying in West Virginia that sometimes you have to fit 10 pounds of manure in a 5-pound sack. That's what we're going to do tonight. So this is going to move a little bit quickly, and if you don't agree with everything or it doesn't all stick, that's okay. I hope to be around frequently. I'm going to write my phone number at on the board later on, so that if you have further questions, my hope is that this is the beginning of our relationship working together, not the end. So quickly, an introduction of what our organization does for those who are interested, and then we'll dive right into this training. As Ali mentioned, our goal is to end child poverty in West Virginia. And it's important that whenever I get a chance to talk or whenever we have a chance to meet with a new group of people, that we take a second to acknowledge what that problem is. So if I can ask for your help, which is going to happen a lot tonight, if your birthday is before June 30th, please stand up. Okay. Everyone look around the room. You've got a sense. This should be about half the people in the room. Stay standing for a moment. So in West Virginia right now, 1 in 2 children live in a family that doesn't have enough money to make ends meet. So if you're standing, that's you. And if you're sitting, it's someone you love or care about. That's what we're up against. Please sit. Thank you. So we don't, I I appreciate the recognition for our organization's work and a whole lot of other organizations' work on the 18 victories that we've been a part of. And it was not just our organization, but it's a drop in the bucket. We have an awfully long way to go, and we see what we're doing as something, a mission worth 20 or 30 years. It took us a couple of generations to get into this mess, and it may take a couple of generations to get out. The way we do that, and there are lots of different strategies, people disagree on that. The strategy our organization uses is community organizing, which is a fancy way of saying basically two things. One is that we seek big systemic change, and two is that the way we get there is from the bottom up. There are lots of ways to affect change. There's lots of ways to have an impact in the community. What we do is we say, let's shoot for that big systems policy change, but let's make sure that the people who are leading it are those who are most directly affected. Does that make sense? Yeah. So that's what the next hour is going to be, is what does that look like? What are the 6 steps for community organizing? Or what are the 6 steps for how to make a difference? And you're going to help me a lot with this. We're going to go through step by step. You're going to tell me what those steps are, and then we're going to practice them. Very briefly, actually, I'll save this to the end. We'll talk a little bit more about ways that people can get involved, if you wish, at the end of this. So let's begin. Where do you think you would start? If you're trying to get this big systemic change or make some big change in your community from the bottom up, where do you think you would begin?
With yourself.
With yourself. Good, 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 good. A mistake we often make, right, is to say, well, I'm here to change your life, right? Or you've got some problems, I need to take care of you. It has to begin with ourselves. How? Begin with ourselves how? Getting involved in activities, even before that, even before we take action.
Recognize what needs to happen. Recognize what's the problem.
Recognize what the problem is, and it's personal, right? What we call that is story. The change we work on begins with individual stories. Stories about an injustice that has affected you or someone you love. Right? If we're trying to get that change from the bottom up, it's not okay for me to speak on someone else's behalf. I speak for myself. I speak for my family, as do each of us. So we're looking for, the first step is a story of an injustice that has happened to you or someone you love. So be thinking of one. I'm going to ask everyone in the room to think of something personal to you. You won't all have to say it out loud, but everyone be thinking of that. While we're thinking of those stories that affect us, someone tell me why we start with story. We start with a lot of different things. Go ahead. Did everyone hear that? Everyone can relate. Right? If we're going to build this big team and achieve this big change, we better start with something that people can relate to. And there is nothing, we may disagree on ideology or even on statistics, but if you tell me a story about something that's happened to you, I can imagine it happening to me. Excellent. Why else?
Motivation.
Motivation? Who said that? Motivation for whom?
So for the grassroots movement or the audience, you want to combine with the people, want them to buy in, want them to buy in motivation.
Yeah, good. So there's actually motivation in 2 forms, right? One is that, and we know this from brain science, that the thing that most moves people to action are stories. It's not, you can tell people all the statistics in the world, but if you tell the story of one person, it moves us to action. So it motivates others. The other kind of motivation is what? For us. There's a reason why things don't change very much, right? It's hard. It's exhausting. You might get criticized. There's 5 more steps here. If we want to make it all the way through to the end, we better start with something that's personal to us to give us the motivation to get through the next 5 steps. Make sense? And if this is personal to me, I am going to stick it out. Any other reasons why you would start with story? Yes?
What are other perspectives
Okay, say more.
Just to see other sides. The question was, why would we listen to other stories?
Yeah, why would we start this process by listening to stories?
So I was saying to learn about other perspectives.
Yeah. You know, we're going to need a lot of people in this process. And if we're telling stories and hearing the stories of others, it gives us broader perspective. There's one more big reason we start with stories.
Emotional value.
Yep, and that goes to the motivation and things like that. So that's good. That's good. That's not what I was getting at. Focus. Excellent. Focus. Right? If we start with a big, huge idea or an ideology or a party or a completely formed vision, we may go in a million different directions. But an individual story, something that affected someone I love, well then, as I get down the steps, I'm going to know. I can check, you know, 4 or 5 steps down the road. Well, is this thing that we're working on, is it going to actually affect that original story? Excellent. So story is particular. Good. One of the things I like about organizing and doing this work is that every one of the 6 steps requires at least a little bit of courage. And so we're going to practice a little bit of courage. I'm going to ask a few of you to tell a story. Something that's happened to you or someone you love, an injustice that you wish to right, a wrong you wish to right. Who would like to start? I know for a fact there are 62 people in this room, and not all of you have led perfect lives. Yes?
On 9/11 this year, I was in chemistry, and a fellow student came up to me, and I said something a bit like grammatically incorrect, and he told me something that was really like hurtful. He said, "Go back to your own country and learn English," which was very, very hurtful, and it was very, very difficult.
Thank you for sharing your personal story. And what's your name, if you don't mind my asking? What's your name?
Wama.
Wama? Does everybody feel the room changed, right? That's the other reason we start with stories. We talked about emotion. All of a sudden, we aren't just in seminar, right? We're all now imagining ourselves in that classroom and what it might be like to have to go through that. Thank you for sharing a story. Are there a couple of other brave souls willing to tell a story or two? Yes, please.
So while growing up, bullying is a big issue now. And so when I first came from India, and so grew up in Connecticut, and back then the number of foreign or immigrants were much fewer, and people from, for lack of a better word, the brown community were very few. So bullying is nothing new. It's been there in our schools for a very long time. And so there was one kid that particularly liked to pick on kids. And back then I wasn't 6 foot tall. I was very small and scrawny. And so he would constantly harass me and so forth. And one day I just got fed up and I just went after him. And out of character for me. But just then the teacher walked in. And then he told that kid to go and sit down. But he called me outside. I'm like, what's up with this? And then he comes and tells me, he goes, that kid will be what he is, but you have places to go.
Wow.
And that obviously has stuck in my mind ever since then.
Fortunate that the opposite didn't happen, which frequently does. 1 or 2 more stories? Everyone was making eye contact with me before I asked for, now, I mean, they're just eyes darting all over the place. Go ahead.
I am a lawyer, and so I'm going to say something that has to do with legal recourse and about inequality. When I was a kid, I had a lovely Irish setter, beautiful dog, lovely, but she was the maniac. She loved to bite people. And one day I was just sitting in my veranda, she walked out of our lawn, bit someone, and came back wagging her tail and sat next to me. And the poor guy just started crying. And I took this guy to a hospital where my friend's father was the director of the hospital. And he stitched him up. And then he said, come here. And I was his son and I were friends. He said, come here, I'll get you some food to eat, some snacks to eat. And we sat down. And then after a while, there was a knock on the door. And it was this guy that my dog had bitten. And he came in and he said, "Doc, am I going to live? I have 3 kids." And this dog goes, "Get the heck out of here. I know that boy. I know his dog. I know his entire family. What are you complaining about?" And at that time I was relieved. But over time, as I've thought about it, it was a horrific thing that happened to that guy. Just because I was upper middle class and he was a poor guy, and I happened to know this physician, fix him up. So it stuck in my mind that inequality can be very pervasive. And I am very glad that in the United States, something like that typically will not happen.
Maybe more often than we'd like. Thank you for that story. Maybe one more. Yes, go ahead.
One day in school, in John Adams Middle School, I was in 7th grade, and there was this one particular teacher that would like to stereotype, like, us to go on to one of
You're doing good.
Yeah, I didn't even have her for a teacher, but I've heard stories that other Muslims on the other team she would make fun of. And one time I had to be pre-assigned to her class, so I went into her class. I didn't even speak a word, and she yelled at me and said, like, brought up like terrorist comments saying like ISIS and all that stuff. So I didn't do anything about it, but later on, as she kept making comments, I went up to the principal, and even the principal talked to her, but she wouldn't stop. So eventually nothing happened to the teacher, but till this day, I've still heard comments about her saying even about black people, and she's a black person, and she says how people don't care about black people and Arabs and Indians and all that stuff. So I don't know why she still teaches at John Adams.
What's your name?
Janine Alasadi.
Janine?
Yeah.
So, for those of you who had a story but didn't share it, keep it in the back of your mind. We're going to focus on one of the stories that we're told and go through all 6 steps together. But for those of you who have a story in your mind, keep that story in mind through the next 45 minutes or so, and imagine how it would play out if we were focusing on your issue. Janine, would you mind coming up here and being a volunteer for the rest of this exercise? Yes! Thank you very much. Absolutely, she deserves applause. So this is the first step. One passionate, oftentimes angry, I would be angry, person, and that's how change begins. And we see it. I mean, another thing I like about organizing is that each step is valuable in itself. When you add them all together, you can get this big systemic change. But even by itself, just telling the story, right? You can imagine an op-ed or a blog. Sometimes just telling a story, a piece of artwork, is valuable in itself. What do you think comes next? What's the problem? Even before that. Or, this sort of is the problem, right? We've named story. You could call this problem.
You plan how to
Plan, even before plan. How does it make you feel? Not quite. We're close.
The cause of the problem?
The cause? No. Options? No. Scott?
Seeing if anyone else shares the story.
See if anyone else shares the story. We're getting closer.
Analyze the story, think of what really happened and why it happened.
Okay. Circumstances. We're getting there. Yes. Was that? Being positive helps. Janine is up here by herself. Let's change that.
Rally up some people.
There we go. What would we call these people? She needs more people, not supporters. What do you call a group of people all working together? My favorite word is team. You can call it whatever you want. The reason I like team, yeah, some people say mob. No, that is not what we're interested in. The reason I like the word team is because there may be a lot of people who share her experience. But what we're looking for is a group of people who are all working together, who know their roles, and who are trying to address it, right? And that requires some work. There's probably 100 people, many of whom in this room, who've shared your experience. What we're trying to do is organize them into a team where everybody knows what their roles are. Make sense? What kind of people do we want on a team? There's a few different kinds of people, no matter what the issue is, who we want on our team. Who? Leader. Okay, good. Some sort of a leader, facilitator of the team. Someone who can, someone who's been down this road before and can help guide the process. What other kinds of people? What's that? Sympathizers. Analytical people. Volunteers. Ah, here we go. Money people. That was good. That was good. No matter, and it's not money people. You could say resource people, and it's often not the richest people who are the ones who are best at organizing resources to a cause. I've seen undocumented young immigrants organize resources incredibly well, right? So it's not necessarily a rich person you want on your team, but you want people who can bring resources. You want money people, and you want people who can bring other people to your cause. One other thing that was mentioned, you want folks with different skills, whether that's analytics or communications or whatever. You think about your problem, and you're like, okay, I want some people who match my skills or have other skills. And then another thing that people mentioned in the brainstorm, the word I like best is integrity. And what we mean by that is people who do what they say they're going to do. This stuff is hard. If you've got, in some respects, I'd rather have people commit to very little but always do it than the folks who've got these, who want to do everything and get 75% of the way there. Because if we're going to go into this, and we're going to challenge the way things are, I want to know I can completely rely on folks. Make sense? So, Janine, who would you like on your team from this room?
From this room?
Yes.
How many people?
Your choice.
Let's go off with Sarah.
Wait, so let's start with Sarah. Why Sarah?
Because she's my friend. And
Tell her. Ask her to be on your team and tell her why.
do you mind if we'll be on my team? Of course. Okay, thank you.
Well, why? Okay, so you want to come up here? Okay, so Sarah, can I ask you, that was great. Sarah, can I ask you, why did you say yes?
Because I feel like I fit in the, I fit in the characteristics of
How so? Well, but why did you say yes to her, though?
she's my friend and I support what she's doing and like her.
Okay. Did everybody hear that? Why we asked Sarah why she said yes. First, we asked Janine why she chose Sarah, and Janine said because she's my friend. And then we asked Sarah why she said yes, and Sarah said because she's my friend. That's the reason people join teams. They don't join teams because there is some really passionate description about how they'd be a really good resource person. They don't join teams because they went through an explanation of the broader intellectual context of the issue. We join teams because someone we care about asked us. That's the main reason. So you guys did it perfectly. Who else would you like on your team?
My father.
Okay. Where is he? Good. Okay. And why would you like him on your team?
I like him on my team because I know that he could take action and he would be a great part in this conflict.
Father, would you be interested in joining the team?
I have to.
Yes! Within the exercise, you have choices. I don't know what kind of choices you have in the broader context.
Absolutely.
Okay. Come up here. Who else would you like on your team?
I would pick most probably Wilma, because she also went through this conflict and she could help as well.
Excellent. Wilma, would you like to be a part of the team? Come on up here. That's the one thing, the one person left on the team, and we shouldn't take it for granted. One of the things that I see most often in my job is people who are trying to make big policy change, but forget the most important ingredient, which is people who are directly affected by the issue. It happens all the time. We've got rooms full of legislators and experts who have studied the issue, who have very strong opinions about the issue, and nowhere to be found is someone who is directly affected by it. So excellent instinct to include not only yourself, but another person who has been directly affected. So Janine did a fantastic job of picking her team. She picked people she could trust. That's another word that's sort of floating amidst the rest of what you want on a good team. One thing Janine didn't do, which was great, most people in your role, Janine, especially in a big group like this, will say something like, well, I don't know, who wants to be on my team? And this happens, seriously, you laugh, but that's normally what people do, and that's normally what people do in the real world too. It's called sending a mass email, right? It's the same basic idea that says, oh, I don't care who's on my team, whoever wants to be on my team, right? Instead, you went right to a single person that you trusted and built your team. So very good job. That's the way we build teams in my line of work and in our volunteer teams is one-on-one, face-to-face, because it's an important commitment. Being a part of a team is going to take time, emotional energy. It's going to draw you away from other things that matter to you. So we want to have the respect to sit down with someone face-to-face and make that ask. So Janine did a fantastic job. Let's give her a round of applause on that. Okay, good. We're going to be okay. We've got about 25 minutes left. In the real world, the first two steps, stay up here. The first two steps in the real world also take the most amount of time. Why do you think that is? Before we move on to step 3, why did number 1 and number 2 take the most time?
Hesitation.
What's that?
Courage, hesitation.
Yeah, it takes a lot to go from nothing to something. That takes time. Why else?
You need to pick like the right team members, and you need to put a lot of time and effort into like how you're going to set up everything.
Absolutely. There are other groups who go about this work differently, who think that the only thing that matters is winning that change. And sometimes those groups will skimp on step 1 and step 2 because they don't really care whether it comes from the bottom up or side to side or whatever. But when we're trying to build leaders and get stronger and empower people, these 2 steps are what make it so that the rest of the steps are really led by everyday people. Excellent. So we've got an angry team, a passionate team. This is where a lot of organizing or activism ends, right? You can imagine a protest happening outside of a school where people say, you know, I don't want this, no to that, right? We know what that looks like. But that's not enough. That's good. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's not achieving that big change we want. What do you think comes next? What's step 3?
Reaching out to people?
Not exactly. Not exactly. You've sort of done that. Number 2 is you're reaching out, you're building your team. Good thought. A plan.
Vision.
A vision, solutions. Yep. The word I like is goals, but you can call it whatever you want. A plan, goals, solution. Another way you can call it is you have to know what you want. In this work, it's very easy to know what you're against, and it's much harder to know what you're for. And this is going to be tough for you guys too. We'll do a little brainstorm here in a second, but start thinking about what is it that could change that would make you feel like it's a real change. Like it would really address what you've experienced. What would actually need to change in order to address what you've experienced? And this is tough. That's why a lot of groups stop after step 2 and say, Well, we don't know what the solution is. We just want to identify the problem. Why is it so important to name our goals, to name the solutions, and to have everybody agree on them? Why is it so important? Yes?
They don't lose track.
So you don't lose track. Very easy to lose focus in this. We talked about focus earlier. The goals are going to keep us on track. Why else?
Target the goal. Target the right goal.
Yeah, that way we make sure we don't end up fighting for the wrong things. One story that comes to mind, this is a really big story, but I think it gets to the reason why goals are so important. About 30, 40 years ago, people all across the United States got organized because they were angry about the drug epidemic. Right? They saw drugs tearing apart their communities. They got really angry about it. They raised awareness. They met with legislators, et cetera. And it was this huge thing. But in some respects, and I'm oversimplifying, but in some respects they stopped after step 2. And they said the drugs are the problem. And when you don't define the solution, somebody else will define the solution for you. And so what we got was this incredibly expensive, incredibly punitive drug war that has not reduced drug use in the United States. It's put a whole lot of people in prison. It's spent billions upon billions of dollars, and it hasn't affected the root problem. Right? So if we don't define our goals, if we don't define the solution, someone else might. Make sense? So let's hear from our group. What would change? What would you want to change at the school or at a few schools that would really make a difference? Maybe prevent this from happening. And just brainstorm. Let's get a few ideas up here and we can choose them.
So to like stop that and to change people's attitudes about certain, and also to show parents on how to show like appearance, improve appearance.
Okay, so who do you want to inform and educate?
Probably ignorant.
Well, unfortunately, when you put a sign up that says, "Attention all ignorant people, come to our training," not many people show up. So this is good. This is the tough part. Of all the steps, step 3 is the stickiest.
Students, everyone, like the students and the staff of the school.
Okay, which school?
John Adams Middle School. Oh, all schools.
Okay, so maybe it's John Adams, maybe it's all schools. And we're talking about some sort of education for students and teachers, it sounds like. What would that look like? Or what should that look like?
Like integrate the education of different religions because like schools are becoming more diverse with different religions and stuff, and I feel like children don't get enough education about like how to interact with people of different religions, and like they need to know a little bit of stuff about different religions. Like we're taught a lot about Christianity and stuff like that, but I don't think they know anything about Islam or like any other kind of religion. So.
Okay, so build it into the classroom?
Yeah.
All right, so we're starting to get some options here, which is great. You want to have a couple, in a perfect world, you want to have 2 or 3 solutions or goals so that you can change strategy if need to. So one of them would be changing curriculum so that there is more direct time spent on diversity of religions and sort of interactions among people, right? So one could be a change to curriculum. What else?
Sort of have like a thing to like incorporate students. Sort of like for us, we have a club. It's called MSA, and we did I think it was like a multicultural day. It was like different countries, international day, and we had different countries, different people from different countries who sort of present their culture and like their country and stuff. It was really cool because like you could see all these different kinds of cultures, and everyone. It was like set up in the library, so anyone could walk in and see it. And we got a lot of questions. I thought it was like a thing to like sort of like be open and unify questions. Yeah.
So a second thing might be an international day at the school or at schools. go back to the Janine's original story, right? In this case, so we're talking about things that might help students, but our original story was about a teacher. And my guess is it's probably not the only teacher who may have articulated these things. How do we affect that?
Or make like more consequences and like talk about it as in like make it more make it a more important issue towards everyone and like actually discuss it. Like don't try to push it aside and like forget about it because it's really reoccurring everywhere around the world. So we should like start discussing it more openly and start like making more like start setting up like more legitimate consequences.
For instance, I took a stand whenever she said that to me. I said, this is not right. You should tell me this kind of stuff. Because, like, I never even spoken to this teacher. She's never even had me in class, never seen my attitude, never seen my grades or anything. And immediately she started saying all these comments, terrorist, ISIS, bringing up all this. I just told her it's not right.
Did you go see the principal?
Yes, sir. I mean, yes, ma'am.
The other thing is to talk to Board of Education about that.
They don't take it as seriously because when we
they should.
Yeah. When we spoke to the principal, all he did was go ask the teacher about it, and even students, like he asked the students, did she make these comments in these classes? And they all said yes, and they didn't say anything.
Okay, so we've got a couple of ideas. I want to hear some stuff from the audience of others possible goals. So 1 would be changing curriculum, 2 could be instituting an international day, 3 could be disciplining this particular teacher. What else?
Governing agencies.
Training the teachers.
Because I know in our county they sponsor many teachers, they send them to Israel to give them training on the Holocaust. So, because they want this topic through in our county has been going on for years. So training teachers on diversity, especially the way our schools are no longer just for white Anglo-Saxon students. So something similar to what goes on training teachers about the Holocaust.
Okay. Yes, sir.
You can like work with school project. Like there's an anti-bullying project. You can like ask them for help or like join with them and like say that like making fun of someone's like diversity or judging someone by their race is considered bullying.
Mm-hmm. So one thing that sort of gets us to number 2. Maybe we involve some anti-bullying folks and allies on our team too. Excellent point. So we now have 4 possible things that we think would actually make a difference here. Changing the curriculum, an international day, disciplining the particular teacher, teacher training. What's that?
Policy change.
A policy change. How would you change? What do you think the policy should be?
Make this as intolerable as making any slur to someone's color. When the religion is not any awareness. But awareness was a different step. Now we have to take it to become a board of education or state law or federal law. That whoever does that is not fit to be a teacher. But necessarily you wouldn't start with that, but you want to make sure that what you're doing has teeth. Because you want to expect of people with goodness to do that, and you find thousands ways to get away with it. You want ultimately to make this beyond what's tolerable, socially and or legally.
Excellent. These are 5 completely legitimate. Yeah, go ahead.
I think crisis plan, for example, is not being reactive. You need to be positive, for example, because those people who have this stereotype, they expecting you to be defensive and reactive. So try to be positive by also reward them if they act nice to you. That means the pressure not to be all the time on you. You are proactive by managing the pressure, by rewarding the teachers if they do something nice, if they take care of other people with other diversity, something like that.
So, excellent. So one option would be change the policy to make it the discipline more harsh. Another would be taking those teachers who are doing a particularly good job, inviting them in, rewarding them, awarding them, inviting them into the community so that you're not only weakening those that might be against you, but you're strengthening those that are with you. Okay, I want to take one moment, because this is one of my favorite parts of this exercise. Just take a moment. We've been talking for 35 minutes, and we have 6 very good ideas of something that could be better, and that affects a very real need in a community. Sometimes there's a feeling like this is impossible, or we can't do anything, or it's, it's too complicated. I think when we ask the right questions, there's nothing to keep us from doing this every time there's a crisis like this. And it took us 35 minutes to come up with 6 really good ideas to respond to this. So just want to take a moment to acknowledge that, which is good work on everyone's part. Of these 6, are there any in particular that stand out to you guys?
The teachers. Inviting the teachers.
So the teacher training and the rewarding of teachers, it sounded like too, yes? Okay. All right, let's focus on those 2 for the sake of argument. Now, if we were taking more time, we'd probably take about an hour for the meeting where we brainstormed goals and then decided which ones to go on. We took about 12 minutes, which is pretty good. But in the real world, we might take an hour. We might even do 2 meetings. One to brainstorm ideas, and then we research and come back and decide these are the goals we're going to focus on. So we know what we want. We want more and better teacher training, and we want a way to sort of reward teachers who are doing good things. What comes next? Actions. Okay, good.
Strategy.
Yeah, so this is, in some respects, all of this is strategy, right? I mean, this is what we're doing is strategy. Think more specifically. So we know what we want. What comes immediately next? Organizing it to happen? How?
Finding resources.
We're setting up, and this happens in the real world too. We set up all of these unofficial, all of these artificial barriers. Step 4 is who. Step 3 is we know what we want. Step 4 is who can help us get it. We go straight line. And we'll talk more about why in a second. So in this case, who could get you what you want? Who has the power to help change the teacher training policy or to do a better job of rewarding teachers?
Board of Education.
Okay. Pick one person. And this is important. We always try to pick one person, at least to start with, so that we can focus our energy and find an ally to work with. Who's one person who has the power to do this?
Should it be one from the team?
No, outside the team.
The person in the Board of Education that deals with this kind of stuff.
Okay. So the head of curriculum for Kanawha County Board of Education. Does anybody know who that is? Yeah, that's figure-outable. So we figure out who this person is. Maybe we do a little bit of research on it. Maybe we go to the principal first. That's another possible who. But we pick one person. That's step 4. And then what's step 5? Yes. Did everybody hear that? Do it. Go meet. You can call it courage. You can call it action. It's a meeting. We know what we want. We know who can get it. Step 5 is having the courage to go sit down with that person. Does this feel too fast for anybody? Okay. It's okay to speak up if it does. Kind of? Why?
Because you haven't really planned out every detail of the plan and what could go wrong. And so, you don't really know your backup plan and stuff like that.
Yep. So there's a little bit more that happens in step 4, where as you're researching who, you're also thinking about what could go wrong, and maybe you're role-playing it. But one thing, and every situation is different. There are people who disagree with this. But in the work we do, we actually try to go quickly from step 4 to step 5, or even from step 3 to step 5. And here's why. If you guys are a team that's just forming, and you've got this good idea, you've done the research, you've talked to each other, you've decided these are our goals. If in that moment you go directly to the person who has power, then all of a sudden that person can be an ally, right? Especially if you're not exactly sure what you want, because then they can create it with you. Now, if instead, and this is what normally happens, if instead you wait 6 months or a year or 2 years and you create all these materials and all this research and you get really stuck in what you think is the exact right thing to do, and then you take it to someone in power and say, well, are you going to do this, yes or no? All of a sudden, I don't know, that's not interesting to me. I don't want to hear your plan if you're just coming to me and you already know everything. So it's tricky, and maybe you don't get everything you want out of the first meeting, but our instinct in the projects that we run, in the state policy that we work on, in the local projects that we work on is go get that relationship first. Go meet with that person, even when the idea is still forming, so that hopefully they can be a part of it with you. People disagree on that, but that's why we move fairly quickly from step 3 down to step 5. Okay, so imagine we're in the meeting, and you guys have your stuff ready, and we have Janine tell her story, and you say, but we're not just here to talk about the problem, we have a solution. How would you ask me for my support? I'm the principal in this case.
Well, that we'll give you some, you'll benefit from it as well as us benefiting from it too.
What is the what? Just ask what it is. So what can I do for you? How can I help?
We have an issue. We want to see if you support us or you can relate to this issue to see if we can prevent it from ever happening again or do something about it. Just start by doing something about it. And
I'm with you. I think this is really important. What is it you want me to do?
Just go back. Train for the teachers, like the things that we have listed out. We want you to
So just say them. How can I help?
Train the teachers to be more conscious about the bullying that's going on, like the different types of bullying, including like the stereotypes and stuff like that, and the other stuff that rewarding the teachers. Oh yeah, and how the teachers will be rewarded, and how it will encourage them to be better people, and the children will be inspired by the teachers, and overall everyone will be influenced in a positive way because of this change.
Okay, good. You guys did a very good job of that. The reason why I wanted them to do that is because this is super hard. That's why it's called the courage to act. Actually spitting out the ask, the thing you want, is incredibly hard to do. Grown, professional people have a really hard time doing it because we get into this mood and we're with someone who's got a little bit of power, and our natural instinct is to kind of get small or to step back from what we really want. You guys did a good job. So you named, will you institute training to do these things? And what will the answer be? And this is 99% of the time, no matter what the issue is, the answer is almost always the same from the person in power. What is it?
Yes.
We'll see what we can do.
Yeah, pretty good, right? So some people in this room have dealt with people in power before. So in my experience, it looks something like this. And the thing I'll say is that I actually think this is reasonable. So I'm not trying to pick on people in power. And what you'll hear is something like, thank you so much for being here. This is terrible. I want to do something about it. I don't know if I can take action right now. Can I please get back to you? And can I think about this? There's some people I need to talk to. Can I get back to you? So that's actually reasonable. I'm not saying that because we should give people in power a hard time for that. That's a reasonable response. They're hearing it for the first time. 99% of the time, in my experience, they really are genuinely interested. They really do genuinely feel for you. They really do want to make something happen. Not every time, but the vast majority of the time. But they also know that they aren't a lone actor, that they have all these other people they work with too. And so I think most of the time when people say that, it's actually genuine. But we also just can't leave it at that, right? So what do you, so I, thank you so much for being here. Can I get back to you? And what do you guys say? What's that?
Call her again and ask what's the next step and when did she take an action or something.
Good, good, good. There's two good questions. One is when can we talk again, right? And then there's one other question, and this is, if you remember nothing else from today, this is my favorite question from this training. You want to take a guess at it? It's a 4-word question. It's a little tiny question.
This is a 5-word, but is it a yes or a no?
That's good. Use yes or no, but then they'll say, well, in spirit it's a yes, but I want to get back to you. What will it take? What will it take? And be genuinely curious. And then this leads us to step 6. And you may have to ask that question 2 or 3 times. What will it take? No, really, what will it take? What can we do to help you make your decision? It's a genuine question. What will it take? And that's what leads us to step 6, which is evaluation. You come out of that meeting, and you've presented yourself strongly, you've said what you want, and you've really gotten to the bottom of what will it take to move this person. And then depending on what they say, you go back up. Maybe they say, well, this sounds really good. It sounds like an important need, but I don't know if this really happens that often. And you say, well, if we found 5 more stories, would that convince you? And you go back up here. Maybe he says, well, that's all well and good, but I wouldn't want to just do something with the Muslim community. But if this were a project coming from people of all different faiths, say, okay. Let's go back to step 2. Build our team a little bit. Maybe he says, this sounds good, but I need more specifics. Who's doing the training? Are you guys doing the training? Am I doing the training? Where is this awards thing happening? Say, okay. We can work on the specifics. Step 3, make the goals a little bit more clear. Maybe the person says, I would sign up to do this tomorrow, but I have a board that I'm accountable to. Would you come and present with me to my board? Okay. Go back to number 4. Occasionally, you won't be able to get a meeting. And in that case, you kind of go back to step 5 and say, okay, how can we get this person to meet with us? How can we do something to get their attention? We finished in less than an hour. The offer I want to make to wrap up is anytime we do this exercise, I don't believe this stuff is theoretical. I think you guys have a good case. I think there's good that could come out of the effort tonight, and I would be happy to help. And that goes to anybody in the room who has another story that we didn't work on. The reason I do trainings like this is in the hopes that a week or 2 weeks or 2 months or 2 years later, someone will give me a call and say, hey, I remember when you came and did that talk, I'm kind of thinking about this thing. Could we work together on it? So that's my cell phone number. Can we all give our team a huge round of applause? I'll hand it back over.
Thank you very much. That was excellent. I appreciate it.
Give me a call. I mean, that's the thing I want to. That's the thing I want to leave with. The main reason why things don't change is not because there's not enough talent, or because there aren't enough things that are wrong, or because it's hard to come up with solutions. It's because it's easier not to. And so, thinking about whatever stories in your head, or the other, whatever things you would want to see change. Let me be a first call, or call someone else in the room. But that's it. It's just take the first step. That's what I would offer.
Thank you. So stay here for a second. So having heard Stephen and what he is capable of doing, him and I have, and a couple other people in the cafe team, would like to initiate a leadership course led by Stephen. He is an expert on a lot of subjects. The leadership course could be an hour or two on a Saturday monthly. So it could be maybe six months. It could be weekly, depending. We don't know what it looks like. Some of the things that could be covered: public speaking, for example, negotiations and power, working with legislation and public officials, building relationships and alliances, planning events and actions, and the list goes on. So we can customize it to, if there are 4 or 5 people interested in 4 or 5 different things, we can certainly work with that. So if you are interested, there is a book in the back of the room, or actually Feroz has it. Sign up and put your name, put your email address, put your cell phone number, and those who will sign up will probably meet at one point and talk about what we want to do and how we're going to do it and how long it will take. So if at that meeting you decide this is not something you want to pursue further, you can drop out. And if you would like to stay on, then you can stay on. So we would appreciate if anybody would have any interest. I know a few of the cafe team members are going to be interested in this. We want to extend the offer to you guys as well. So again, thank you very much.